Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Saturday morning, and I am sitting here with some friends, and we just watched some Saturday morning cartoons. That's right. Welcome to the SatAM Club, where we, as bona fide adults, whether we like it or not, look back at the hale days of Saturday morning childhood, essentially. My name is Forward Progress. I run the Keeping Friendship Magic project. The shows that we watched today, I was familiar with all of them. I had seen one of them before. The other two, I don't know. So the one I know I never saw. And we'll get into what those were in a moment. So that gives you a sense. I remember these all existing. I was aware of the time period. Wasn't an avid viewer of most of it. Go ahead.
I'm Nova Rose. I wasn't born yet, so I really wasn't familiar with the shows. I was introduced to one of them because of this one. And then some of the other ones I feel like were osmosis because of YouTube poop. Especially the one was used a lot.
And we will be discussing that. Mr. the Breton.
Hey guys, Bret the Breton here. Is this where we do the shameless self-promotion bit?
You are free to do shameless self-promotion.
Awesome. I do a Twitch stream on Saturday nights. This week is going to be a rerun, so no stream tonight. But next week we'll be back. It's me and my friend Unbalanced. Saturday nights we get together and play something, and we have drinks, and I share the recipes online, so the viewers at home, both of them, can drink along with us. And that's at twitch.tv/Bret the Breton, all one word. And the website for all of the above stuff. Oh, that's right. BretTheBreton.com as of yesterday.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
It goes to the same website that we've had before.
Right, but no, I got
link,
you.
yeah.
Hey, that's easy. BretTheBreton.com, and definitely check out the show. I appeared on it recently and had a lot of fun, so it's definitely
it was one of the best episodes that I'd done. That was so much fun and so funny and so silly and just good stuff. You're welcome anytime.
It was good and ridiculous.
Anytime.
All right, and also joining us today.
Hi, I'm Gajinka. I am one of the con-chairs for Sequestria Fest. I have a Twitch, but I haven't streamed in like over a year because life has been crazy. I might be getting back into that here probably early next year. Trying to think. I had seen images and maybe a little bit of one of the cartoons, because like as soon as Ford said the name, I was like, oh yeah, isn't it this show that's very reminiscent of this other show? I think it's by the same people. I other than that, I was born in this year, so I was a baby. So I don't remember them airing on TV, obviously, and to be honest, I don't even know if we had cable. So
we didn't have cable when I was a kid. So
yeah, the times, we might have had rabbit antennas at that point. I really don't know. I know my dad had like a huge film collection though.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the time period we went with today, which was 1991.
Come with me if you want to live.
It's okay, Mom. He's here to help. It's okay.
Super Mario World is here. It's one of the new generation of Nintendo games. It comes only with Super Nintendo, and it's like nothing you've ever faced. Now you're playing with power. Superpower.
Five months ago, Saddam Hussein started this cruel war against Kuwait. Tonight, the battle has been joined.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
Now, get Sonic free when you buy a Sega Genesis system at its new price.
Good evening from Washington and Merry Christmas. And while much of the world was distracted today by the business of celebrating Christmas, Mikhail Gorbachev signed himself and the Soviet Union out of business without ruffles or flourishes.
So, and I bring all this up to talk about the first two cartoons that we watched today, which was kind of a sandwich. It was one cartoon mixed into two, which was Captain N the Game Master with Super Mario World. That's right, Super Mario World, as in the first Mario title, and the first game, I guess, technically, period, on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System back in the day.
My favorite.
So, it was very, and that was very much of the time, and let's face it, Super Mario World, I think to this day, 30-odd years later, is still very highly revered as a game, as a title. The imagery, a lot of the things that were in that game have really set the bar and set the tone moving forward for things that we still see in Mario today, I would say. I mean, Yoshi.
Meanwhile, the show was birth to most of our new age memes of Mario, it seems.
So yeah, so it started. Our block started with Super Mario World. So let's go there here. So it's 1991. You're Nintendo, and guys, let me explain something, especially to those who I'm not. This is not an ageist thing. It's just want to make sure people know. There was a time when Nintendo did license out their properties. Believe it or not. This did happen in the early times. Until about, what was it, 94? 95?
I think it was 94.
When the Super Mario Brothers live action movie came out, and after just seeing some terrible products of their licenses, just Google Philips CDI and Nintendo, and you'll have your answer. That Nintendo pulled out. But we had back in the day.
It was 93.
93, okay. So
Super Mario Bros.
We had, but before the live action, before even this show, we had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which featured live action Mario and Luigi with Captain Lou Albano as Mario, and some of the most memeable PSA announcements at the end of them. Which, I gotta say, it is interesting, and that is one thing that we did actually see a PSA in our block today. It was one of the old The More You Know promos from NBC that aired during it. And
it was about teaching.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was about getting more teachers out there in the world, and I think it's interesting considering we are still having a teaching shortage.
Yeah.
Like, we had a staff shortage then, and we are still in it. Like,
well, and see, it's so confusing because the PSA made teaching sound so appealing.
Okay, you're gonna get some students like me who clown around when we're supposed to be listening.
Oh
yeah,
gosh,
it was...
no, it basically was like,
not.
teaching sucks, please do it anyway, the PSA.
Exactly.
It was like, hey, I'm gonna give you a headache. You might have like a couple headaches a week.
Wasn't that like Mayim Bialik, I want to say?
She looked familiar.
I
looked
think
really
it was Mayim
familiar.
Bialik, which is crazy.
It looked like it could have been her. Yeah.
Which is, she hosts Jeopardy now, right? If I'm not mistaken. But she was, I don't know, this is another telling you how old I am. She was Blossom on the show Blossom.
I remember
back in the
Blossom.
day.
I remember Blossom. Yeah.
But I digress. Let's get back to Mario here. So,
Rose is like, what?
So we had that. We also had, there was I want to say a Mario Brothers 3 cartoon that aired shortly before. And I think there was a generic Mario Brothers that may have become Mario 3 and then Mario World. So I think they kept trying to kind of like update with new shows based on the most recent title, is what they were going for. And that makes sense. I mean, for cross-marketing, let's face it, all four of us kind of got to know one another through the Brony community, and that is Hasbro run. And Hasbro's literal company mission statement is about making products and media to promote the sale of toys. So if you kind of go with that logic, you know, you think about things like Nintendo, like the cartoon is kind of promote the video game in a way. So, like, you know, okay, so let's kind of talk about what we saw and what we thought was a success and what we didn't think was a success. And anybody can jump off.
Okay, so in this show, we were introduced to the character Ogtar.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't think is in any other Mario anything.
Ogtar was an original
Did not even know this character even existed.
And I guess the concept was, I can imagine, okay, let's say, let's back up for one moment and let's all agree on one thing. If you flesh out on paper the logistical concept and creatures to Mario that all exist in this world, it sounds effing nuts, right?
Like, and then you have Ogtar, who is, as far as we can tell, a human child.
A cave baby, I guess, is what you would call
like
him.
a cave or kind of Neanderthal.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking is somebody...
Or Tarzan, even.
Does anyone remember Lothar of the Hill People?
Oh, this sounds so familiar to me.
Lothar of the Hill People. It was a Mike Myers sketch on Saturday Night
Live.
Oh,
okay, yeah.
So the whole time I was thinking, Ogtar of the Hill People.
So we're talking about Ogtar. What I found like the weirdest was them trying to keep it hip with the kids, but also trying to keep him at the status of he's a cave person, he's a jungle kid, he's like maybe 5 or 6 years old, and he's saying like, "Hey, Dino Dude" to Yoshi, and Dino-tastic.
Whoa! Yoshi, eat piranha plant. Dino Dude, radical cool.
Like, as a slight aside, I noticed like a big trend, especially with 90s cartoons, where there was always one character that tried to be like hip. Like Cowabunga Dude,
and
like...
that's okay. Yeah. So here's the thing, like, and I wanted to get into this conversation because this is a trope that we saw across all 3 cartoons we watched today. Was the character that was in this very, I want to say, like, and I realize it hits me more looking back on it now, because when I was a kid, you know, I was 8 in 1991.
Oh wow!
I was 8, so. At the time, you know, like the cool dude, that was like the ultimate male embodiment, like the stereotype, like the thing that I should want to be, is that cool dude, surfer bro kind of attitude. And it's weird because, like, I hate using the word cringe, I really do, but it almost made me kind of be like, hey God, as a kid, like, this is just like what I thought. And then as I grew up, I just like, I get to the point where when I see this, I'm just like, oh, what a stereotype of people aren't really that, like, and it's just like, wow, like that mind just, oh.
Also, the people that were using the quote-unquote slang of the time, the most, were the characters that were supposed to be, like, the more male embodiment kind of characters. They were blonde, they had blue eyes, they were white. And they were not the brightest of the characters.
Yeah,
and this was across all 3 of them.
Yeah, you were gonna say something, Rose?
Oh, like, does anyone actually know anyone that talked like that?
No.
There was almost. I feel like people made fun of the Valley accent more than they actually used it when I was a kid.
I occasionally use the word dude.
Dude, I use to this day though, because he's a dude, she's a dude,
like,
everyone's a dude.
It's been going on since like the 40s to use the word dude. So like,
but you don't go cool, dude.
Well,
right.
here's the thing.
Wicked. Okay, I do say wicked. Gnarly. There we go.
Well, this is why I wanted to set the scene of the time period too, and the climate leading it. So we're 1991.
I mean, we had MC Hammer in parachute pants.
At that point,
yes,
this is
and magic shoes.
This is like that is very much the type of media coming out. There are a couple of properties that I want to mention that were big, and I think influencing so much media of the early 90s. One is a little cartoon that recently got a fresh new coat of paint, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Came out in the late 80s, and very much the cowabunga dude, surfer bro attitude that the Ninja Turtles had was very influential. I was a huge Ninja Turtles kid.
Dude.
I had so much. I had all those figures, and it's so ironic because I'm lactose intolerant and usually shun cheese, and therefore pizza's not a big thing for me. But man, pizza and the Turtles, right? As a kid,
it's synonymous.
Yeah.
So Pepsi.
Another thing that came out in the late 80s, early 90s were The Simpsons. So you also had Bart Simpson became an icon of the early 90s iconography. I mean, he had a song. There was the Do the Bart Man. That was a cassette single that I bought, that I had as a kid.
Yep.
And it was like on the radio. Like Bart Simpson was on the radio, but again, that attitude, like, don't have a cow, man. So the prevailing male protagonist of the time had that attitude. Like, there was so much of that iconography that carried forward. So even if you wanted to play your protagonist a little more, and here's the big thing too, like, your protagonist can be beefy and intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it feels like they just, and granted, I understand where some people, when you have to give your characters flaws. I understand the Mary Sue crisis. I get it. But that doesn't mean, like, it becomes such a stereotype and such a negative impression, especially on kids. Because it's like, looking back on this now, I'm thinking about how these cartoons are like shaping my viewpoints of where social classes lied and stuff, you know? And
yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, so I'm like, you know, looking at this, it's like, oh, no wonder I never thought I that I fit in, and I think I devalued the things that I was good at because it was like, you know, what you were told is the ideal male was just something I wasn't.
But no, I was just gonna say one thing that I think comes into play on some of these cartoons, particularly the ones that were made to promote toy lines, is that the people that created them many times, I think, went all the way and just basically treated them as a commercial, and they relied on a lot of these tropes. Yeah, you mentioned copy and paste a minute ago. I was like, yeah, a lot of that, because it made their jobs easier and made everything turn around more quickly so they could make more commercials, cartoons, and so on and so forth. But every now and then you get one that broke out that was, you know, reasonably creative, that had the time and or the budget to kind of break the mold a bit, but most of them did not.
I mean, well, and I think that was my original, where this circles back to where my mind was originally thinking on this with Utar, that if you, like, Nintendo greenlights, like, hey, you guys make a show for us, and you as Johnny screenwriter, whatever, you know, TV producer, gets handed, like, here's what the game is, and you just watch it and you're like, so it's a plumber riding a dinosaur eating mushroom people. Got it.
The dinosaur talks, right?
So
Surely
it
the
makes
dinosaur
sense
talks.
to me where I
Alright.
could see somebody just goes in and they're like, okay, I'm going to add a character
Even-
that's a cave boy to go, because it's dinosaur, Yoshi, all of that. And it's, so I could see where it came from, and then they tried to push the characterization of the hip what's in to get the kids watching.
And
I mean,
just to kind of segue off of that as well, and back to the copy paste, even Yoshi seemed very copy paste as the the animal that talks and gets this one episode of, hey, they can do anything and everything that they put their mind to. When I first saw Yoshi on the screen, during this watch, like, even the voice, it sounded like the original Spike from My Little Pony.
Yeah.
And like looking at the storyline side by side of both the original Spike story with, I believe it's the T-Rex movie, it was literally the same thing. That episode and the My Little Pony movie that had T-Rex in it were the same episode.
Wow.
One was just, I think it was 45 minutes for the T-Rex movie, and then this was like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, give or take. But it was the same thing. I was like, okay, so our protagonists are all chained up by this magical person, and the person that saves them is the pet, basically. The person that nobody expects anything out of.
Look, Ukta! Magic flying block! Oh! Magic wings make Yoshi fly like Dino Birdie! Ukta, right! Yippee-ki-yay, man!
Let's see. Trope.
Exactly. And it was just interesting because I remember watching the T-Rex movie like actually in 2020, and just like watching it, I was like, man, this is kind of like Scooby-Doo in a way. And we're literally going from 90s to 80s to 70s now. Just like, it's the same thing over a 3-decade period of time.
okay. So, followed up by Captain N, the Game Master. So, for those unfamiliar with it, Captain N is, I guess, an isekai from 40 years ago. Yeah, it's an isekai from the early 90s, late 80s. It's a kid. It's a teenager, typical dude bro teenager of the day, gets pulled into the video game world and has to fight for justice, I guess, with Nintendo, licensed Nintendo properties and characters.
Princess, the palace is under siege!
Behold, the ultimate warp zone.
Kevin, I thought I told you to clean up your room.
So he fights with the Power Blaster, the Nintendo Blaster gun that came with the original
I didn't
Nintendo.
get to see him pull it once.
I'm sorry. You got to see it.
No, disappointment.
But I didn't get to see him pull it.
If you guys couldn't tell, by the way, the interesting, effeminate, hulky man that was with him all episode was an early on-screen representation of Simon Belmont.
Yep. Yeah, and I did not figure that out until they actually referred to him by name. I was like, Simon Belmont? Okay.
Yep. It's quite different from what Netflix is doing with Castlevania.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Netflix's Castlevania, 17 thumbs up. I freaking love it.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
It's very well done.
Not the new. Oh, I haven't seen the new one yet. The original was stellar, amazing, and now there's a new series here. I'm site. And that same studio, all this mature content warning, by the way, that same studio made a show called Seis Manos that's also on Netflix. If you have Netflix and you don't mind a little violence, I'm just gonna put it out there, and some adult themes and content, check it out. Highly worth it. Anyway, in our episode here, we had Captain N, who had to save, I forget what it's called. It was Tetris something. It was like the Tetris land.
That's what it was called. It was just called Tetris.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just Tetris, yep.
I think what they do is they take an episode and base it off of a game that they've made, and instead of changing the name of the world or whatever, they just keep it as the name of the game.
I mean,
so
it's
that their
easy
parents
for the cross-marketing perspective.
Right, exactly. The parents are going to, their local game store or Radio Shack and being like, hey, can I get Tetris Land? What is Tetris Land? There is no Tetris Land. Yeah. So I think they kept it with the names of the games. I don't know if I liked the villain so much.
The villain was
very lackluster.
Are we going to be your next victims?
Oh, that would be rude. Since I'm a sporting puzzle, I'll give you one chance to save yourselves. All you have to do is answer one little riddle. Are you game?
I had the weird,
He was quite literally a cardboard cutout.
yeah.
Yes.
And,
he was a puzzle.
Yeah, and he had a riddle thing, which is...
Yeah, and his puzzles were terrible.
Yeah, it really was.
Puzzles. You're supposed to be a puzzler. Give us something inventive here.
I mean, granted, the target market for this is very young children. I do recognize that. And it's also like, God, this is the time. Things have evolved a little bit, as new legislation has come out. But, man, how much we were marketed to as kids.
Oh, yeah.
I think they changed the legislation in 95 or so, 95, 96.
Yeah.
And that's why we have more commercial-esque based cartoons prior to that.
Right.
I can't remember exactly what the act was, but I have looked that up because it's something that's fascinated me. I mean, I'm an adult that likes My Little Pony. Come on.
Children's Television Act.
Thank you. That's it. Children's Television Act. And basically what it was, I mean, they can still do commercially kind of cartoons, but there has to be a lesson in it.
Yeah, which, granted, that's how we got Friendship is Magic, and we all saw what that did.
Yeah.
But it's interesting here, too. The characterizations of the characters, I guess, were very much, again, trying to fit into the time. It's very much of the time. The princess, I'll give the princess in that series some credit. She does do some things. She doesn't do nothing. Which at the time was all it takes to be like great female representation, technically,
Yeah.
Yeah, she actually, she did have some hero-esque characteristics. I mean, she saved her brother.
Yeah.
Which normally at that time it was, I need a big strong man to help me.
Very interesting character.
Was there any moments, I didn't catch this, I didn't think to look for it at the time, but were there any moments where a male character grabbed her by the hand and said, "Come on, let's go"? That's always a huge trope.
I don't know.
Even if the female is like a strong character with reasons to not behave that way specifically, that still happens in so many things. Once you realize that it's there, it's one of those things that pops out to you, but I didn't notice it in this one. I thought maybe I missed it or something.
Here's my thing with, especially the specific episode we watched, the only thing that really got me was Simon's character.
Lyle? Oh no! My brother's in trouble again! We have to go to Tetris immediately!
count me out. I've had enough hair-flattening experiences for one day.
Was very over the top.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I think we've gotten better over time, right? With, like, I think there was this just prevailing attitude, like, you had to keep characters simple and one note for kids. Like, kids can't perceive that characters can be
They
more.
can't be three-dimensional.
And it's like, well then, at the same token, aren't you just teaching kids that they can't be more than one dimension?
And then Avatar came along.
Yeah.
And then Avatar, yeah. Well, I mean, and
everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
That's gonna be like, see, we could do a whole episode on Avatar by itself, but freaking, there's somebody else go. I lost it.
I love the amount of Indiana Jones references in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I dropped my hat.
Yes, I need to go down into this portal and it's closing. Oh man, I dropped my hat. Let me grab it. And then there was from Simon. Simon used the whip, and I was just like, oh my goodness, there are so many Indiana Jones references in this. Ha!
So when the guy grabbed his hat, I was like, dude, you are so not Indiana Jones. Don't even try.
Like, yeah.
It's like
not even close.
And that was another big property at the time. I mean, I actually remember, I don't know if anybody else remembers the Young Indiana Jones series that ran.
Yes.
Yeah.
They also had an Indiana Jones Nintendo game.
It was. I never played it.
It was actually pretty decent for what you were able to do in it, and if my memory serves correctly. So,
all right. Last cartoon of the day that we saw. This one will be an interesting discussion. So let me introduce this slightly here. In 1978, a film called Attack of the Killer Tomatoes released in theaters. It's essentially it's become a cult film that was really a parody of the big giant menace monster, havoc movies of the 50s, and then so it got enough of a cult status that it got a sequel in 1988 called Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Based on the success of the sequel, we got a short-lived cartoon series, and I mean short-lived. I think it's one season.
Yeah, it was very short-lived.
So,
there was also, I was just going to say, there was also an Atari 2600 game that was inspired by that, though not directly licensed. It was Revenge of the Beefsteak Tomatoes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
And that was for the Arcadia, what was it called? Supercharger. It was the thing that you plugged into your Atari, and you would load games from cassette.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And I never had one of these things, but you can get the games on emulation, and some of them are really, really good. Some of them are, but they're pretty good. But yeah, it was. It also appeared on the 2600 in a fashion, so to speak.
So, I remember Killer Tomatoes. Vaguely, I think my adoptive dad was like a fan of it. But I think that's predominantly because of one character, which is the uncle, and him having a lot of similarities with each other, unfortunately.
Sort of like a rolled up pizza, you see. Rolled? Rolled? Pizzas aren't rolled, they're flat, like the world.
There was a flat Earth joke in the first 2 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
Uncle.
Yep.
Like at one point he gets kind of Civil War reenactor kind of vibes. He's got like a freaking cutlass and is like, I'm gonna charge into the woods with.
Yeah, and he threw in the "just say no" reference. Did you catch that?
Just say no.
I heard that. So
say no. He takes off.
It's interesting when you think about the framing of the property in and of itself. When you think about the fact that this is based off a property that's a parody of old, like, pandemic, like, scary monster movies, his character makes sense as a parody character. But if you remove that context, does it come off weird?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I need to find this out because I'm still stuck on if Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes was produced or had any ties to the Garbage Pail Kids, because they are so similar.
The style. Yeah, you pointed that out at one point, and yes, you're dead on with that.
The other thing too is the cartoon was produced by Fox Kids Animation, like their own studio produced it.
It's listed as a horror comedy.
Yeah, and that's what it's intended to be.
Yeah.
The thing with this, now granted, I never watched the series. There were a lot of characters. There was like 3 plots running at once that I think coincided, but I kind of got lost halfway through, which I'm 40 and getting lost. Imagine if I was 8, you know?
It just felt like a fever dream.
It really felt odd. I think it was a little too much of a reach in trying to cash in with the success of the film, is my guess. And trying to go for something weird and kitschy, which was very early 90s, was like weird. I hate saying gross out, but gross out was some of it. Humor that was in that time period. Because
Garbage Pail Kids being a fine example.
Oh, exactly. And I want to say this is around the era, probably shortly thereafter, we got the Ace Ventura movies were big. So like,
such a good movie.
Like,
and you had things like Gak and Slime and all these different sort of squishy toys. And there was one thing where I can't remember what it was called, but you could make your own bugs, and they were like gummy bugs, and you could
Creepy
then
crawlers.
Yes.
That's
wanted one so bad, but I
never had one either
because they were too. It was not girly enough.
Well, and that's a thing too, because that was interesting. Let's I really don't have too much more to say on Attack of the Killer Tomatoes other than it just felt like a mess all around, to be honest with you. And I feel bad saying those things because people put in time and effort and work into it.
I love the animation.
I
like the animation.
I want to touch on one last thing with Killer Tomatoes. The main girl protagonist is a tomato.
Yeah, that was weird. I could not. They never explained. Granted, and it was weird to me because cartoons of that era were not serialized often. So
there were 21 episodes.
Yeah, that's more than I thought it would have had, to be honest with you.
Well, back then that might have just been one season, possibly.
Yeah. So
it's listed as 2.
But
apparently, they did release a couple episodes of season 2, but it was canceled mid-season.
Okay.
So but I know her voice. I know I've heard her voice before. I want to say it's somebody on Captain Planet, if not another series too. And there is such a thing about that recognizing voice actors in various properties thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that stuck out to me because it was like there was very much like a voice that a lot of girl characters had at the time that I felt was very
Gajinka in Captain Planet.
Yeah, that it was very just like they're trying to like it's like they would give it to a stronger character, but the voice itself always sounded weaker. I don't know if that's just me.
Yeah.
Did you guys get that? Where it was like we can't give this strong woman a strong voice.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's like they had to offset it somehow, or they felt like they had to offset the strength, and that's unfortunate.
Keep the patriarchy in line.
Yeah. So the person who wrote the movies, wrote the cartoon series, was Richard Mueller.
So it was the same guy writing it? Okay, so I feel like it's if I wasn't dropped into the middle of it and could understand the full complexity of the parody, I probably would be into it more. I can freely admit that.
Yeah, this is the same guy who came up with RoboCop.
Wait, what?
This is the same guy who did RoboCop.
Ah.
And you're talking to a room of people who,
Wow.
yeah, you're talking to a room of people who, like RoboCop. You know what? I can see that though, because here's the thing about RoboCop. RoboCop
I grew up in this.
is
Sorry.
okay, so RoboCop is a movie that actually is making a statement about corporations and violence and all this stuff, but it's one of those, like, you have to know that it's doing that. Like, if you go in and you're not looking for it and you're not thinking about it, and especially if you have a viewpoint, let's just say that your political or social viewpoint is not, like anti-violence, I don't know how better to sum that up, but then maybe you won't get it. But if you do get it, it's effing brilliant. Because it's not slapped in your face. It's very subtle. It's very violent. It's very graphic. It's very, like, it hits hard. And then you realize afterwards, it's like, wait a minute. Oh,
Verhoeven was very good at that. My favorite example of that, I think, of all time was Starship Troopers. It is a very complete political parody and like a satire, basically, of fascism.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, nobody catches that. I mean, people do nowadays. People talk about it so much. But back in the day, my friends saw, this awesome movie, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what about, service guarantees citizenship? Is that cool? I mean, the whole, I don't know, the whole war machine, I guess, for lack of a better point.
There's so much that's in there, but you got to know to look for it and not have it just be like the background imagery.
It does not. Once you see it, it feels really obvious, but the first few times you watch it or whatever, it does not beat you over the head. I mean, it presents its parody, but you really have to be kind of looking for it to see it, and I always thought that was brilliant.
So I want to wrap up here with talking commercials. So we saw a selection of commercials from 1991.
And we also saw ad breaks between them.
Yeah. Thanks, YouTube. Anyway, would you like commercials for your commercials?
Oh my god. They were so nostalgic, though.
Yeah, Rose. Commercials. Thoughts?
Honestly, I remember some of those.
Yeah.
They definitely kept a life, I think.
I'll say they were very of the time.
Very much so, yeah.
There was very much, one of the first ones I think that we saw was a lot of, like, really hyper kids and all this. Like, it was very that.
Was that the High C ad?
No, it was before that, but the
High C ad
was towards the end.
That's right, yeah.
It felt like a precursor to Coco Melon.
But it was like, radical. Like that, it was more that same stereotype, and it was very
screen in big, bold, bright, colorful letters.
Well, the 90s was like extreme,
Yeah. It's like Smoochie was the author of most of those commercials, I think.
Yeah, it's
Poochie, not Smoochie.
Yeah. So I did get nostalgia from the Burger King Kids Club gang that I remember from kids, from being a kid. I remember them. Most of it I was just kind of like, okay. There wasn't too much that was just like, oh my gosh. Like, every once in a while when I see old commercials, there's things where it's like, oh wow, we really marketed like that, huh?
Okay, the Lucky Charms commercial. That's part of a story.
That was what I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
The time, okay, guys, remember, like, and I don't know if it's like it's so weird. We don't have Saturday morning cartoons as a thing anymore, technically. So, like, I don't really see too much children's advertising, I don't think, anymore. I mean, I think I probably see some, but I don't see what I did when I was a kid, so I'm curious. When I was growing up, there was, like, cereal mascots were, like, the characters. And it was, like, a universe of cereal mascots. And that was
and
a
they
whole
had
thing.
stories, and you would have to sit in front of the
Yes,
TV
like-
to get the whole story because they would chunk it up
Like,
into
will-
little 10-second
Will the kids
sections.
get Lucky's charms? Find out in the next exciting episode of this ad break. You know?
Yeah, Trix did that as well.
Trix did it with the rabbit. Yep.
Toucan Sam, especially when his like nephews got involved, or I think they're nephews.
I remember. It was either 2 or 3. 3 is a very common number for things like that.
Yeah.
Believe it was 3.
I think so too.
It was just like all of that was just so much.
Were those like Indiana Jones style commercials?
Sometimes.
Vaguely,
Yes.
They were like in a jungle.
Yes.
Okay, I do
I
remember that. Oh man.
But
wow.
like,
crap.
so my question is like, it's weird now because like, cereal's not good for the most part. You know, like anymore. You know what I've been eating lately? Raisin Bran. Because unfortunately,
I actually like
I'm
Raisin
an adult.
Bran.
I do too. But like, you know, knowing that all these sugary cereals are bad for you, and it's like I really wish that there was like better, healthier versions of them. To be honest, because I just love the lore of the mascot stuff with it.
That brings us to today's sponsor. Have you tried? What's the cereal that they're?
Nature's Made, I want to say it was called. Hey, shout out, or whoever, whatever your company's name is, I will learn it if you give me money. Anyway.
Right. But so
Rage
there was that
Cereal Legends.
Rage Cereal Legends. But there was that and like another commercial that really stuck
I have to
to
have
me.
that tattoo on the back
was
of my neck forever.
That needs to exist.
But the other commercial that really stuck out to me, besides the Barbie commercials,
which actually weren't that bad, I gotta say.
They weren't that bad. They were actually really well put together,
They were
and
decent.
they weren't
they didn't
over the
seem so like,
except for the dance one.
They didn't seem so gender conforming, we'll say. You know?
Yeah. There were men in the commercial with the dancing Barbie. It wasn't just a bunch of girls. We also saw board game commercials, which you don't see it all anymore.
And I want to say, I think
my tummy aches. You have butterflies in your stomach.
Everybody in this call is, I think, an avid board game lover. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god.
I have debated about trying to find a way to do a board game based show, but it's hard, especially with camera angles and stuff.
Yeah. I want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I've already thought about it.
It's because man,
is
some games that we've
simulator.
Oh, there is Tabletop Simulator. We're gonna have to look more into it, but
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Suffice to say, I think the commercials overall was a pretty fun nostalgia trip. We really didn't find. I think we found some of the same tropes that we were finding in the series already, but nothing. I don't think the only thing I think that really the things that stuck out the most were some of the character designs, especially the villain in Captain N. The chaos of the Killer Tomatoes, just because there was so much going on and not knowing the backstory. And with Mario World, I think the biggest thing that stuck out is Yoshi talking is weird, just after all this time, but you get over it. Uktar
and it was baby
just kind of just goes.
I don't know why, but Uktar's name goes into my brain and then subsequently just it's gone.
Yeah,
I can't remember for more
I
than a minute.
forgot that he existed as a character until I started doing research.
You should sing his theme song in your head. Utar of the Hill People.
Okay.
So
Uktar is rat goo backwards.
Good night, everybody! Wouldn't it be funny if I just flip in, just cut the camera right there? Okay, but
thanks for coming. Drive safe.
I gotta say though, I think
and my mind just flips things, and I was just like, this kid's name is Ratgoo. Wait, no, Uktar.
I'll say this: final judgment on tonight's segments. I will say that everything we saw is very much of the time, but didn't necessarily age poorly.
I give it rat goo out of 10.
Yeah.
It's got very heavy nostalgic vibes for for certain reasons. Did it age well overall? No. But like I said, it's very nostalgic for the times, the art style, the tropes. This is a show that you would want to go out and look specifically for at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we see like media like that, like this older media, I don't think we have a way to really turn off that filter in our brains that says, well, this was made during this time period, and it lets a lot of things slide through. I think it gives them maybe more credit, makes them hold up a little bit better, because those nostalgia filters can be very forgiving.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. I will say, like, it was like, did I like Simon Belmont's character in Captain N? No, I'll say that flat out. But I also know better characterizations now. I have that benefit of the hindsight of 30 years later being able to be like, go to Netflix, it's amazing. Like that.
Yeah, because 30 years later we have Netflix.
We have and we have those two amazing Castlevania series on there that are just like so top notch.
Well,
but
this was right about the time the things that we were looking at were right about the time when the media landscape really started to kind of fragment. And you started to have things like, Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and all these other things coming around that were direct competitors to that whole Saturday morning thing.
Yeah,
and I think
Fox stopped doing cartoons
Yep.
at all.
Yep.
Shortly after that. And I mean, there wasn't really a Disney Channel per se, because we even saw advertisements for the Rescue Rangers on Fox Kids.
Disney Afternoon. I remember Disney Afternoon as a kid.
Same.
And we'll probably do a weekday afternoon club. I don't know. We'll do that at some point.
God, yes.
Oh, I'm
please.
sure.
I was homeschooled at some point in my life, and I remember just going and watching.
I will say most of my child cartoon memories are more the weekday afternoon ones than they are Saturday AM ones. But there are
WB Kids on the weekends on Saturdays for me.
But this is just the first run through of this. We're going to be back to do more, and we're going to have a rotating cast, and people, this is going to be a lot of fun. So if you liked it, definitely stick around. We're going to be back. I want to thank all of my guests for getting up on Saturday and sharing a adult beverage for some childish cartoons.
I swear that it's adult. It's got stuff in it. I promise.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink.
Mine has nothing, but I did buy a bottle of banana vodka today.
Oh,
so,
we'll allow it.
It's just not in this yet, so maybe later.
But thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Nova Rose, Gajinka, Bret the Breton. My name is Forward Progress. Thank you for joining the SatAM Club, and remember to keep friendship magic out there. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you for having us.